Why Bangladesh is buying drones from China, why Bangladesh has decided to increase its proximity towards China and leave India on the outside, and how this creates consequences for India which needs to be tackled now. South Asia's politics is gradually shifting and very quietly. When we are talking about the headlines, we usually get to hear about Indo-Pacific, but in India's own backyard, that is Bangladesh, China is marking its expanding influence. And this is raising questions for India, not just about Northeast connectivity, but also the ties that we have, the historic ties that we have with Bangladesh, and also the neighborhood leadership that has existed for India. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh, and in today's session, we are going to look into this new deal that has been signed between China and Bangladesh, where there will be collaboration not just for import of unmanned air vehicles, but also manufacturing in Bangladesh. And when we are looking at this particular collaboration unfolding, this is not the only singular incident that we are finding. So we need to look into that, what exactly China is trying to do in Bangladesh, why it is a cause of worry for India, what India is doing that is creating friction between Bangladesh and India, and how this needs to be corrected. So let us begin with understanding that what exactly has unfolded. So as I said, that they have signed a defense deal where they will be manufacturing and assembling drones, unmanned air vehicles, and this has been proposed at the Bogra Air Base, which is very close to India's Siliguri corridor. Now, this is not the first time that China is marking its presence around the Siliguri corridor, because if you remember, this very month there was an incident where Chinese ambassador was let in by Bangladesh very close to Siliguri corridor for the Teesta project. Now this shows that China has keen interest in Bangladesh, and the locations that we are getting to see are very close to Siliguri corridor, which is also known by the name of Chicken Neck corridor. Now in this context, we have to clearly understand that as of now in South Asia, what we are seeing, that there is an intense competition that is unfolding, especially between China and India. And in this context, China's presence and growing influence in Bangladesh is marking a structural shift. In India's neighborhood, Bangladesh is no longer only a bilateral partner, but it has become a pivot state, and most importantly a geopolitical pivot state. And that is why this issue does not need to be seen only through the lens of collaboration, but we need to look it through security, we need to look it through connectivity, economy, and also regional diplomacy, with keeping in mind that Bangladesh is the center of our neighborhood policy, Act East policy. Now, when we are talking about this collaboration, another thing that has been brought, when we are talking about this collaboration, we have understood that this is the one which makes India worry, and this needs to be tackled immediately. But how it needs to be tackled, what are the dimensions around it? Now let's move that end. Now let us move on that end. So first thing that we need to understand, that why Bangladesh is of immense importance to us, why Bangladesh is strategically critical for India and in so many dimensions. So when we are talking about dimensions, the first dimension that we need to look into is the geostrategic importance. So this has two parts. The first part that you need to understand, that how Bangladesh covers almost all of the eastern flank of India, and it shares boundary, it has the longest land boundary with India, and it shares boundary with multiple states here. Apart from that it covers most of our eastern flank, Bangladesh has close proximity to our Siliguri corridor. You can see that this is Bangladesh's border, and this is our Siliguri corridor, which is almost 20 to 22 kilometer wide, across this region, which is the only connecting point that we have to Seven Sisters, that is a northeast India. So if at all there is any problem here, then it cuts off northeast India from mainland India, and that is why it is a choke point that India needs to protect anyhow to maintain the integrity, to maintain the unity actually, and the autonomy that we talk about. Then the importance also comes in economic factors. The biggest economic factor that is associated with this country for us is the essential transit route through to northeast India. When we are talking about connectivity projects, for example, Agartala-Akhora rail link, others are also pending and they are in a questionable place. So those projects are pending, we do not know what is the end to it, and the connectivity that we were looking for, we are not getting that as well. And also, apart from northeast, we also needed access to Chittagong and Mongla ports, which will reduce our logistic cost directly. So economically also Bangladesh stands as a very important factor. And then comes the security angle, where stability in Bangladesh is of great essence. Because it directly impacts the border management, it directly impacts the insurgency which is present in northeast, it impacts the migration and also the maritime security that exists in Bay of Bengal. So from multiple angles, we get to see that Bangladesh is basically, when we are talking about neighborhood policy, it is where we need to put our flag down because it is at top of the list. But in contradiction to how much important Bangladesh is, in last 2 years, we have seen a great dip in our historical ties, and you can mark it as a historical low between India-Bangladesh ties. And because of this historical dip that I am talking in the engagement, in the ties, in the engagement and in the reciprocation, China has always wanted to engage in South Asia, expand in South Asia through infrastructure, through investment. China got a vacuum which it is using now. And that is why it becomes very important for India to right away tackle this, because this facility which has been locked in this defense deal, it is going to be present at the new Bogra Air Base. And if you talk about the location of new Bogra Air Base, it will be located right here, very close to Siliguri corridor. Siliguri corridor is here. Again, proximity to the Siliguri corridor. Then, as I mentioned, recently we saw Chinese envoy visiting Teesta River Water Project, which was very close to Siliguri corridor, and also the major investment that Bangladesh is receiving for the huge Belt and Road Initiative. So China is marking its presence like anything across this whole center, but we need to see that we need to understand that China's engagement is not episodic. It cannot be seen like 1, 2 and 3. It is something long term that China is doing. It is something institutional that China is trying to change, especially for itself in Bangladesh. And if India does not act now, it leaves a further bigger vacuum, further bigger space for other countries to come in and take up. For example, Pakistan's engagement with Bangladesh. It was never seen up and until last year. For example, Turkey's engagement with Bangladesh. It has been never seen. So this is where Bangladesh is open to external players coming in India's backyard. Be it US, Turkey, Pakistan, China, and we don't know what will be added further to the list. And the list which is expanding, this clearly shows that Bangladesh is clearly trying to reduce the dependence, exclusive dependence that they had on India, and if India does not act right away, we will have a great loss in terms of regional leadership. It will undermine our Act East policy, and we will have greater concerns, especially on our eastern front, where China would be knocking the doors. Now we have understood that how China is increasing its presence. We have understood why India needs to be aware and India needs to act right away. Before discussing that what can be done, we also need to understand that why China is so much interested in Bangladesh. What Bangladesh, which is chaos ridden as of now, offering China in this context. So the first advantage that China gets, especially in the great competition that is happening in South Asia, is to encircle India in this context. If we talk about China's broader South Asia strategy, their whole idea is to limit India's influence. Because if India is on the rise, then the dominance that China has been enjoying will be taken away. And this is where Bangladesh fits in the puzzle, because it completes China's outreach program and the encirclement that China wants to do around India. China has its hand deep in Pakistan. It has its access in Nepal, which is why you will see that ties between India and Nepal have been also worsening in recent times, and Sri Lanka and Myanmar. So once Bangladesh is also part of this list, the encirclement of India becomes complete from China's end, because if you look at this given map, you will see Nepal present, Bangladesh present, Myanmar present, then we have Pakistan on the other end, and then we have Sri Lanka here. So from all sides you will see that India is being encircled, and India would find adversaries, not partners in the neighborhood, limiting India's potential, making India's security more complex. So the first reason China is interested in Bangladesh is very simply this. Second, China is very much interested in Bay of Bengal also. China wants access to Bay of Bengal because China has very much limited presence when we are talking about Indian Ocean and especially Eastern Indian Ocean. Western Indian Ocean, through Africa, through other countries, China has major investments across Middle Asia also. So Western Indian Ocean, yes, but Eastern Indian Ocean, China's presence is limited. Now when China wants maritime presence in Eastern Indian Ocean, Bangladesh offers proximity to the vital sea line of communication that exists across this region. And to ensure this, China is using every tool in the bag, be it infrastructure diplomacy, that means investing in ports, railway links, BRI and whatnot, economic leverage, defense cooperation and political outreach. China is picking up every rule, every tool to play by the book and bring Bangladesh on its side. And this is getting worsened in the situation where we are seeing India and Bangladesh relation facing extreme frictions. Extreme frictions because of multiple reasons. Extreme friction because of multiple reasons. First of all, as of now, Bangladesh is in a chaos simply because the youth and the political setup has gone anti-elite, and it has gone against the political groups which have supported elitism across the years since Bangladesh's independence. Now in this context, this elitism and presence of elites is also associated with India and the ties that have been maintained. So anti-India sentiment as of now is high, especially amongst youth, and because this is the main agenda, the political parties are using this to drive up the political scenario internally as well, which has resulted in extreme scenarios such as diplomatic missions being brought back, and we have suspended visa services. This is the extreme that we have seen this very year. Apart from that, we also have multiple structural reasons. For example, non-finalization of the Teesta water dispute. There has been no clarity on it, and this is because pretty much of the federal disputes, especially from West Bengal, which are incoming. Then we also have issues related to non-tariff barriers coming from India. India not treating Bangladesh as an equal, and India's delayed infrastructure delivery, India's delayed promises, all this has created extreme trust deficit. So here we do get to see a combination of geopolitical factors, internal domestic political factors, and also structural factors which have worsened the situation. And that is why many multiple infrastructure projects which can help Bangladesh and are also important for India are hanging in the air, where both of the parties do not know if the completion is on the cards or not at all. So in this context, it becomes very important to also consider what are the consequences for India if this is the scenario that we are looking at, that Bangladesh is reducing dependence on India and moving towards other external players. So in this context, India has to be prepared for increased Chinese presence on another front and be ready for the high vulnerability that we will have around Chicken Neck Corridor. We would also have to be prepared for the reduced influence that we will have over the regional connectivity project, and we will also lose the advantage in terms of first mover that we had up and until now. And then also comes the diplomatic consequences, where we will be seeing that Bangladesh will be using the hedging strategy and India's neighborhood primacy that existed as of now will be diluted. All in all, where India is trying to be the bridge between global north and south, India is trying to be the bridge between Gulf and Indo-Pacific, India is upcoming regional stakeholder in Eastern Europe, in West Asia, all of that would not matter if India is losing its stake, especially in its own yard. So that will dilute India's global image, India's diplomatic leverage across the globe as well. Now on this note, we will be moving to understand that what are options left with India, what India can do to repair this particular situation. First, India needs to take away the structural reasons of conflict and tensions. We have to accelerate, especially on project delivery. We would have to focus on execution, not just announcement, and prioritize that we will have high impact connectivity projects, we will have high impact involvement with Bangladesh, and we will be aligning with the changing nature of domestic politics as well. Apart from that, India would definitely need to resolve all the long pending issues, including the Teesta dispute, and bringing in a predictable trade regime so that Bangladesh does not feel exploited, and at the same time Bangladesh feels like an equal partner in the regional dynamics. And if China wants to compete in South Asia, we have to bring in other players in our team as well. We need to collaborate with Japan, ASEAN and Quad partners so as to ensure that we are not making our backyard vulnerable. We would have to offer transparency, sustainability and also local employment to Bangladesh and to the partners in terms of investment and returns on that, so that there is an ecosystem that is created by India where India retains its global image as well, and also the advantages that it had as keeping a friendly neighbor such as Bangladesh. Now on this note, I will be leaving you all. What do you think about India's role in Bangladesh's politics, and what are your thoughts about extradition of Sheikh Hasina, because that is also a sticky point in Bangladesh and India's relationship. That was all from my end. Thank you so much.